Happy New Year, folks, and welcome to the premiere edition of Hashtag AskGSM in 2018 for January 3rd, 2018. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. The new year is not off to the greatest start, if only because I just recorded this show for literally a half an hour. I was a half an hour into this episode when my laptop randomly shut off like that. It just randomly shut off. I have no reason why. I have no idea why. No real reason. Sometimes my laptop, or at least it used to, before I got a new one about 2 years ago, it would like overheat and all this other stuff would happen. Or sometimes I have issues with Audacity, which is what happened about, 6 months or so ago when I was recording the show and I had to redo it over again. And at that point I was fucking tired. It was just a fucking nightmare. That was not the case here. Here I have no idea what happened. I just turned my laptop back on. And I don't know, there was no program starting, I have no idea. So the hope is that I can get through the show this time without it turning off on me. On my computer is usually really, really good. I've had it for 2 years, but I have very rarely had any issues with it. So I don't know what's going on. Hopefully we can do this over again. You're going to be hearing my answers for the first time. I'll be having deja vu because I literally just answered half your questions and it's all gone. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes I will re-record the show because I'll do the show and I'm like, wow, that sounded like shit, or I feel like I fucked up a lot. So I'll do it over again. This time I thought it was going well and the show just is gone. It's gone just like that. So whatever. I know 2018 is testing me, you bastard. So record, redesign, reclaim, as Seth Rollins would say, I guess. So anyway, if you guys want to send in a question, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, be sure to drop a question on this very video in the comment section down below. I'll include it in next week's edition. From Emmanuel A. from YouTube, Feliz Año Nuevo, or if you prefer Happy New Year, I thought I'd start out with a simple question for 2018. So what do you think is the meaning of life? Great question that I can't answer, at least with the amount of time that we have to answer your question here today. If I want to do an hour-long show, I can spend it all in one question, but that's a pretty jam-packed question. I appreciate your ambitious question, though I cannot answer it here today. The meaning of life, what is life, as Tommy Wiseau would say in the room. I don't know, I can't tell you. I'm not sure. That's what Google is for. His next question, we've mentioned WWE All-Stars in the past couple of weeks, and I thought it would be interesting to reflect on the roster. In case you don't remember off the top of your head, All-Stars had a 30-man roster, half of them categorized as legends, and the other half categorized as superstars. Of course, superstars were the then modern wrestlers, and the game was in development around 2009-2010. So I gathered the names of the 15 superstars and wanted to ask you which ones you would consider legends today. And they included Big Show, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Edge, Jack Swagger, John Cena, John Morrison, Kane, Kofi Kingston, Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, Sheamus, The Miz, The Undertaker, and Triple H. So, of course, this is subjective. What do you consider a legend? A WWE Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer, someone that will be iconic in the business down the road? Like The Miz, I would consider a future Hall of Famer. Is he a legend today? Absolutely not, because he's still active. John Morrison isn't even in the company. He's still active elsewhere. Same thing with Rey Mysterio. John Morrison, from WWE's criteria, is not a future Hall of Famer. Rey Mysterio, or at least in my criteria, Rey Mysterio he's still wrestling, so I won't say he's a legend right now. The Undertaker is probably the closest thing to a legend of everyone I just mentioned, because he's probably the closest to retirement. But even he is seemingly still active. Unfortunately, he might wrestle another match. Triple H, same thing with him. He's not a Hall of Famer yet. He's still pretty active. He wrestles once or twice a year. So I would say the only real legend so far is Taker. But for future Hall of Famers, obviously CM Punk, if he ever decides to come back for a Hall of Fame nod. Big Show, McIntyre still doing his thing. Edge is already in the Hall of Fame, so he would be a legend. Jack Swagger, obviously not. John Cena is. Kane is. Kofi Kingston? Yeah, why not? Randy Orton is. Sheamus? Probably off on the far end of legend status, but he still could be considered a future Hall of Famer. But as of right now, obviously Edge, Probably Undertaker and maybe Triple H too, by modern legend standards. If you're talking about like legends today, those would be legends today. Future Hall of Famers, probably half of the guys I mentioned, but right now, probably only Edge, Taker, and maybe Triple H. Lane of the Wire from YouTube. Honestly, finally pairing up Finn Balor with Gallows and Anderson might have been WWE's best decision this week. They've been in the shallow end of creative for a while now, peaking somewhere between winning a championship people thought looked stupid and wouldn't shut up about it, and ball doctors respectively. Was there even a reason not to do it sooner? No, there wasn't. I'm not sure why they didn't do it sooner. I mean, it's not like Balor was in the middle of a hot feud in the summer that couldn't have allowed Gallows and Anderson to get involved. The only thing this guy has done for the past 9 months, and I'm pretty sure it marks 9 months today that Balor's been back on Raw, has been a fucking feud with Bray Wyatt that went nowhere and was terrible. But even before that, they could have put Gallows and Anderson with Balor. Like, we all kind of assumed, okay, maybe they'll hold off on it because Balor's going to re-enter the World Championship picture, or they don't want to turn him heel or turn Gallows and Anderson babyface. That's fine. But we never got it because Balor never went into the main event scene. So why not just pair him up with these guys back in like May? And after coming off the WWE 24 special where Gallows and Anderson were a pretty big part of it because they knew him from Japan from the Bullet Club, they should have done it then. They had a fucking match on Raw with Carl Anderson and Finn Balor facing each other. Whereas on the special, you see Carl Anderson, talking to Finn Balor like he's his best friend in the world. So it was a weird disconnect there. But yeah, this should have happened many, many months ago. Maybe we would not be where we are today with these guys. With them being beyond directionless, especially Gallows and Anderson, even more so than Balor, if they had paired up months ago. It's not like they had been doing anything. I'm not sure what the resistance was. And it is also worth noting, I'm not sure if this will be a permanent thing. I guess we'll find out next week on Raw. I get the feeling it won't be, but I hope it is, because Balor's not doing anything. I know he's going to be in the Rumble, but beyond that, he's not doing anything. I'll talk all about it in an article on Friday for Bleacher Report. But I really do think these guys should be a trio heading into WrestleMania. I do find it funny that we finally get this trio of the Balor Club with Balor, Gallows, and Anderson literally 2 weeks after Ambrose got hurt and the Shield is no more. The Shield reunion was kind of a disappointment anyway, because they were really hardly together for the 3 months or whatever they were around on Raw. But putting that aside, it would have been cool to see Shield and Balor and Gallows and Anderson all in one ring. Obviously not going to happen now, but it would have been an amazing six-man tag team match. Atlanta's next question, I thought we were still on Emmanuel's question here. Their next question, if Sami and Kevin win the handicap match at the Rumble, do they freebird the WWE Championship? All I know is that we need heel WWE champ Sami Zayn. So they did not make that clear what happens if one of them gets to the fall. Do they both become WWE champion, like New Day rules here, freebird rules like you said? Or does one of them win the championship? I would assume that only one would win the title. So therefore, because it's a handicap match, they're going to tease tension with which one gets the fall. And then, that's going to lead to AJ retaining. And maybe there's some drama there with Shane and Bryan, as there has been for fucking months now. But yeah, I assume whoever gets the fall will become champion. And that's going to plant the seeds for dissension between Sami and Kevin. Though I do agree, heel WWE champion Sami Zayn would be pretty fucking awesome. Captain Sunshine from YouTube. What if Cedric Alexander turned out to be Goldust's son from that one time Goldust gave CPR kisses to Ahmed Johnson in 1996, and Jason Jordan challenges them to a tag team match with Kurt Angle at WrestleMania to determine who has the best father-son relationship? As fucked up as that sounds, it sounds exactly like something we would see in the Attitude Era from a Vince Russo production. There's two issues with what you just said, except for the idea itself. One, you can't have kids by just giving CPR to someone. And two, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, the company does not do storyline consistency very well. They hardly remember what they did 3 weeks ago, let alone fucking 2 decades ago. So that's not going to happen. Though it would be interesting, to say the least. Their next question, let's see here. Bray Wyatt versus Apollo Crews on Raw was fine, but nobody was clamoring for 10 minutes of Bray Wyatt shin locks against Apollo Crews. Giving matches time should be about providing the time they need, not just arbitrarily giving out stage time or whatever to pad out a show. Something that can get across everything necessary in 5 to 7 minutes should not be 10 to 15 minutes. Same thing with Asuka versus Alexa Bliss, a match with a fine story about Alexa trying to dodge Asuka and figure out how to take her down. That would have worked out a lot better if it wasn't trying to fill out 15 minutes. How come WWE struggles with this problem so often? I'm not sure, and I absolutely agree. Both matches, they were fine, but very boring at points, because you knew Cruz wasn't going to win. It was so obvious Bray Wyatt was going to win. Very, very obvious that the outcome of that match was going to end with Bray Wyatt getting his hand raised, and that's fine. But it's not even like you give 20 minutes to Bray Wyatt and Apollo Crews. It's not like Apollo Crews is going to have this great showing in defeat. Bray Wyatt's a fucking loser. He had a decent showing, Apollo Crews did on Raw this week, but it's not like the Jason Jordan treatment where he goes in there with a John Cena or a Roman Reigns or even a Strowman or something. He has a great showing in defeat. He lost pretty decisively. Not only that, but Bray Wyatt, he's not that big of a star. At least not anymore. He's a pretty notable name, but if you have a great showing against Bray Wyatt, it's hardly going to mean anything. Because if you lose to Bray Wyatt, the ultimate loser, you don't look too good. So, yeah, I was not a fan of them getting as much time as they did. It was completely unnecessary. The same thing for Asuka and Bliss. It was a decent match, but very boring early on. Because it did not need to go 10 to 15 minutes. Asuka should be fucking killing people left and right. I know Bliss is the champion, but you don't need a 10 to 15 minute match with these women. Because people just didn't care. The reaction to it alone was pretty indicative that they did not need 10 to 15 minutes. Now, I'm all for giving people more time, giving the women more time. I'm all for that, but only when it's necessary. Give these people time when it's necessary and to have good matches. Don't give them fucking 10 to 15 minutes just to kill time. And I'm all for them getting time as opposed to, doing a fucking random segment on Raw that serves no purpose and that's awful. I mean, that's a bit better use of time. But give it to the other matches. I would rather have a 5 to 7 minute Asuka Bliss match and then give more time to Reigns and Samoa Joe. Give that 20 minutes as opposed to just 15 or 25 instead of 20. Give it to the people that need it, not random matches just to kill time. I completely agree with that. Their next question, how much better would the past few years have been if we jumped straight from Shield Roman Reigns to secondary champion workhorse Roman Reigns without the self-aggrandizing trash in between? A lot better. A lot better. I mean, they make this mistake all the time with people where they rush them into the main event scene and they wonder why they're not over. You look at Jinder Mahal, who fucking blows in the ring anyway, but he will be a lot better off as U.S. champion than he ever was as WWE champion. Now, Mahal on the mic and in the ring, he's not going to improve, seemingly. The guy just isn't that good, but at least he's more tolerable at the mid-card level. Like him as U.S. champion writes itself. The whole, India's the greatest nation in the world. I'm the new face of America, like Kevin Owens, whatever. It makes a lot more sense if he's the U.S. champion. And he's also not being asked to work fucking 20-minute main event matches with people like Randy Orton and Shinsuke Nakamura. It's just not going to work. If they couldn't get a good match out of him, I don't think anyone will. I know AJ Styles tried, and they had a pretty good match. But even that wasn't, great. That was a mid-card level worthy match. AJ Styles and Jinder at Clash of Champions felt like would have been a great U.S. title match. For WWE's championship picture, it's not going to cut it. So the guy's right where he belongs in the mid-card picture. That's what they should have been doing with him from the get-go. From the moment they started pushing him on SmackDown, he should have been a mid-card player first. Maybe then move on to main event scene? Hopefully not. But at least putting him in the mid-card scene first would have proven him as a worthy challenger down the road to the WWE Championship. Going from 0 to 50, 0 to 100 in the matter of literal weeks is not going to do that guy or the brand or the championship any favors. Roman Reigns was a bit of a different story. He was already in main events before he became a Royal Rumble winner 3 years ago, and it's crazy to think it's been 3 years. But with Roman Reigns, he should have gotten a mid-card title run first. Because as soon as they shoehorned him into the main event scene, and obviously people like Daniel Bryan and the fact that he should have been there instead was a factor, but I still don't think Roman Reigns would have been as over as he should have been, even without that, even if he just won the Rumble, because people were not ready for Roman Reigns at the main event level. He was not ready. And again, that's a subjective thing, but the fucking Jack and the Beanstalk promos and all that other shit, the guy's a great performer. I know people are going to disagree with me there. He doesn't have the best matches, blah, blah, blah. I think he does. He's not a fucking Daniel Bryan in the ring or anything, but I think he can't hold his own against the right opponent. And he's had a lot of very good matches in the last 3 years. That being said, If we had gone straight from Shield Roman Reigns to what he's doing right now as IC champion, it would have worked out a lot better. A lot better. I mean, the stuff with, everything else that he's done in the last 3 years, from the fucking tater tot shit, Jack and the Beanstalk, all these other awful promos, he would have been much better off as a mid-card champion first before moving on to the main event scene. And maybe we would not be in the position we are right now with Roman Reigns getting booed. My personal opinion. Brandon A. from YouTube as well. What were your top 5 favorite movies that you saw this year? As a bonus, what was the worst movie you've seen this year? So, your question piqued my interest. I love movies. You guys know me all too well. So I won't spend a ton of time on this question because I do want to make a separate video about it down the road, or an article, whatever, about the movies that I've seen this year. So I made a quick list. I went to a website like IMDb or something that listed all the movies that were released in 2017. And I went through, I could remember if I saw the title, what movies I saw, but I saw so many movies. It says here I saw 23 movies from what I gathered, and there might be more. But I just couldn't remember, like, off the top of my head without seeing that released, list of releases in 2017. And I saw a lot of good movies last year. I saw 23 in total, 22, not counting Rogue One. That came out in 2016. I already saw that in 2016. I saw it for a second time earlier on in 2017 with one of my friends. Split, I also saw twice, not because it was an amazing movie, just because I saw it with my brother, and then I saw it with a group of friends at school, and they wanted to see it, and I just kind of went along with them. So, Split was good, though. Rogue One I won't really count. But beyond those movies, this year, real quickly, I saw Logan, Beauty and the Beast, Kong, Life, Fate of the Furious, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, The Wall, Baywatch, Wonder Woman, Baby Driver, Spider-Man Homecoming, The Big Sick, Dunkirk, It, Flatliners, Happy Death Day, Daddy's Home 2, The Disaster Artist, Star Wars Last Jedi, Ferdinand, and The Greatest Showman. Top 5 movies I saw. Number 1 is easily Guardians of the Galaxy. Star Wars Last Jedi would be a close number 2. I thought that was a great movie. I loved it. Episode 8. The Big Sick, I know anyone who saw it said it was great, but I still don't think it gets as much credit as it deserves. I feel like it's one of the more underrated, flying out of the radar movies of 2017. That not enough people saw it. It was at my movie theater for a while, but I feel like it still deserves more credit. It was a great movie. It was a great movie. I really, really enjoyed it. Very funny, great story, great acting. So Big Sick, Guardians, Star Wars, Logan, I had no expectations for, but I fucking loved it. That was as badass as they come. I thought that was a really enjoyable movie. I'm not a big X-Men guy, but my brother wanted to see it. I'm like, holy shit, this is fucking amazing. By the time it was over, it was beyond badass, and it deserved that rated R rating. Beauty and the Beast, Ferdinand, I saw with my sister, so don't get any ideas. They were good, though. The Greatest Showman, I would say, probably a late contender for one of the best movies I saw in 2017. That would be in the top 5. I really enjoyed The Greatest Showman. I saw it last week with my girlfriend, and I'm not a huge musical guy, but I love theater-like stuff, and the scores, the music numbers and shit they did in the movie were fucking awesome. I thought it was great. The acting was awesome. Hugh Jackman, a lot like Logan. The guy, you can't go wrong with fucking Hugh Jackman. He was awesome in that movie. Disaster Artist, some honorable mentions. I enjoyed Disaster Artist. Really enjoyable, especially if you've seen The Room. It was very, very funny. I know someone asked me about that a couple weeks ago here in the show. I had not seen it at the time, but I did see it a few weeks ago before Christmas, and I loved it. It was very funny. It was also great. Worst movies I saw this year, Baywatch. I liked The Rock, and Zac Efron was funny too. Not nearly as funny as I thought it was going to be. A huge flop. And I usually enjoy Rock's movies, but Baywatch really was not that good at all. Flatliners was very disappointing. A lot of stuff that just did not make sense at all. Very disappointing as well. And what else? That's probably about it. Let's see. Daddy's Home 2 I enjoyed. Baby Driver was great. Baby Driver was really, really good. Wonder Woman was also great. A lot better than I thought it was going to be. Life was pretty confusing. I was not a big Life fan. And I'm not talking about the board game. The movie itself was, I don't know, just kind of a weird movie. It was kind of cool in parts, but it was just confusing and weird and a little unrealistic at point. The whole movie's unrealistic, but a lot of things that just did not make sense. So Life, Flatliners, and Baywatch would probably be the worst movies I saw in 2017. And your next question here, let's see. Sticking with the wrestlers, what wrestler would you like to see a biopic, not documentary, of their life? Also, this wrestler cannot be considered an all-time legend, such as a Ric Flair, Bruno, Andre Hogan, etc. So I would say Undertaker, but from your criteria, he would probably be an all-time legend, because we don't know anything about The Undertaker for the most part. So seeing a biopic on Taker would be fucking phenomenal. No pun intended. But speaking of phenomenal, perfect segue, it would be on AJ Styles. Now, if you look at the current roster in WWE, you got John Cena, Randy Orton, all these people they would probably do it on, but I feel like we already know a lot about those guys. We've seen fucking DVD after DVD of these people on Cena, the Jerichos, the Ortons, even Kevin Owens got his own DVD a few months ago. AJ Styles, I know he just debuted. He probably doesn't have the most fascinating backstory in the world, but he talked enough about it on the Stone Cold podcast, which I reviewed a couple days ago here on WWE Network and Chill on the channel. Cheap plug, check it out if you haven't already. But I learned enough about him, like, wow, this guy has a really interesting, upbringing and family life, and from his wrestling career. It would be kind of great to know much more about AJ Styles than what we know currently through a documentary or a biopic or a DVD release or something like that. So I would love to see a biopic on AJ just because he's one of my favorites, but also because he's super popular right now. He's pretty much the man in WWE besides Roman Reigns and obviously John Cena, especially on SmackDown. So yeah, a biopic on Styles would be really, really cool. I think a biopic with him and kind of learning about his life and his wrestling career would be pretty fascinating, if not phenomenal. Brandon's next question: if you leave the rest of the card and the outcome's exactly the same, which WrestleMania that sucked could have jumped about 10 spots in the WrestleMania rankings if just one more match was good? What match from that show would have needed to be better? For instance, WrestleMania 13 could have been that way if Undertaker and Sid was a great main event when you pair it with Bret and Austin, plus the Chicago street fight. I also thought Triple H and Goldust was a decent match. Inversely, what WrestleMania that is considered to be one of the best drops like 10 spots if a great match on that show sucked? For me, it would be WrestleMania 30 if Triple H versus Bryan was crap. RJ's going to hate my answer here. He's going to hate my response to that answer. I agree. I honestly really agree. I loved WrestleMania 30. Don't get me wrong. It really was the Daniel Bryan show. But if you take away that opening match, and the main event was amazing. But really, overall, was not the most amazing WrestleMania ever. Like, there weren't a lot of stories being told. That the streak ended? Yeah, sure, but the match fucking sucked with Taker and Lesnar. The women's match was not good at all. Cena and Wyatt also pretty much sucked, and the wrong person won anyway. I know we had Rock and Austin and Hogan in that great moment, and Cesaro winning the Battle Royal. A lot of cool moments, and that was what that WrestleMania was really all about. Moments. Not as much as WrestleMania 32. It did push forward the future with the streak ending and Daniel Bryan becoming champion, even though Daniel Bryan becoming champion would only last about fucking a month, unfortunately. But yeah, that WrestleMania, I still think WrestleMania 31 was the better overall Mania. From an in-ring standpoint and, the shocking title changes, WrestleMania 30 was great, but it's like you take away that one match, which was one of the best opening matches in Mania history. Is it as good as many people say it is? Top 5 WrestleManias? Just because Daniel Bryan won the world title in the main event? I can't agree with that. I really can. Even though it is a great WrestleMania. I thought WrestleMania 31 was better. That's just me, though. For my answers, a WrestleMania that sucked, but if one match delivered, it would have been a lot better and jumped 10 spots in the WrestleMania rankings, like you said. Not many people might agree with me here either. WrestleMania 27. Was it a bad WrestleMania? Yeah, but I think largely because the main event sucked. When people bring up Mania 27, the first thing that comes to mind is John Cena versus The Miz. That match was terrible. It felt like a glorified Raw main event. And that is not WrestleMania main event worthy at all. If that match was an instant classic, and Miz won as opposed to Cena, I mean, Miz did win. You said keep the outcomes exactly the same. I don't think that WrestleMania would still not be great, but I think it'd be a lot better. I mean, that WrestleMania overall, every match in the card, overall was not a good show. Not at all. But there were still a lot of good matches on the undercard. Orton and Punk was a great hidden gem-like match on the undercard. Cody Rhodes and Rey Mysterio, another very good match. Taker and Triple H, Not as good as their Mania 28 match, in my opinion, but still very good. And even the opener, Edge and Del Rio, should not have been the opener, but it was a fun world title match. It was well wrestled. I know we still have Lawler and Cole, but that's not going to make it the worst WrestleMania ever if the main event's a lot better than what it was. And we also had that terrible 8-man tag team match, but at least it was a minute long. So I really do think WrestleMania 27 would be much more fondly remembered if we didn't have that, skid mark of a main event with John Cena and The Miz. Also, WrestleMania 2000, a very forgettable Mania on the whole, except for the 3-way triangle ladder match with a lot of gimmick matches all over the card, and it was a fucking mess. The main event was also very disappointing, way too long, the 4-way elimination match, all about the McMahons. But if that match delivered, I don't think I would be as down on it as I am. I think if that main event was a lot better with the people involved, Rock, Triple H, Foley, Big Show, it would have been a lot better match, a lot better Mania on the whole. The undercard was still a fucking mess, but at least the main event would have been a lot better, and the show probably would have been a bit higher in my rankings. Because the main event is very important and is very important in determining how good a Mania is. Mania 33, I was there. Very good Mania overall, but that main event will be remembered as being pretty terrible. I thought they told a decent story, but it was not a great match at all with Roman Reigns and The Undertaker. So anyway, like you said, what WrestleMania is considered to be one of the best, but it would be a lot worse if one match in the show sucked. WrestleMania 10, dude. WrestleMania 10. I could not tell you what other matches happened on that show. Off the top of my head real quickly. Beyond Shawn Michaels and Razor in the ladder match, the IC title, and also Yokozuna versus Lex Luger and Bret Hart in separate matches. I mean, you have Bret Hart and Owen Hart too, but what if one of those matches sucked? If Bret and Owen sucked, or Razor and Shawn Michaels sucked, that WrestleMania would not be as fondly remembered as it is. So definitely WrestleMania 10. WrestleMania 22. Not WrestleMania 22, but WrestleMania 20 as well. Where overall, it was not that great of a show. I would probably put it somewhere in the middle. But the main event was what really helped make that a good show. Because overall, it was way too long. A lot of filler. And Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero was good, but really that main event with Benoit, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels, which is considered to be one of the best WrestleMania main events of all time, one of the greatest matches of all time. If that sucked, that Mania would drop many, many spots down, because I don't remember many other matches from that show, except for those top two main events. And it was all about those top two main events. And without it, it's like, it's just another WrestleMania. Undertaker and Kane fucking sucked. So I really do think those Manias would not be as fondly remembered without those great matches that I spoke about. Andre G from Facebook, first Facebook question in 2018, his question was, if there is a 60-minute Iron Man match making a return, who do you see competing in the match? I mean, it's hard to say who I could see competing in it, just because you never really know. We've had a few Iron Man matches in recent years with Bayley and Sasha and Charlotte, the Hardy Boys in the Bar, but those were all 30 minutes. We have not had a 60-minute Iron Man match since John Cena versus Randy Orton in October of 2009 at Bragging Rights. So if you told me back then those two people would be having an Iron Man match, I know Cena and Orton is like one of the biggest feuds of this generation, but from an in-ring standpoint, the match was also really, really good, but I would put two workhorses in there, like a Shawn Michaels and a Bret Hart. And Rockin' H was also great too, but that's for different reasons. Personally, like at one point many years ago, I wanted to see, back in like 2012, CM Punk and Daniel Bryan in an Iron Man match. I felt like those guys could fucking kill it in a 60-minute Iron Man match. Obviously never going to happen now, but if you're going to put the two best workers in an Iron Man match in WWE, that could go a full 60 minutes and have a great match and keep people engaged, for the most part anyway, would obviously have to be AJ Styles, but who would his opponent be? Would it be a Shinsuke Nakamura, a Finn Balor, a Seth Rollins? John Cena has proven he can do it before. We've seen it before, AJ and Cena. I feel like they could have a great 60-minute Iron Man match, though. So, but I will say someone like a Balor or maybe even a Rollins, the biggest workhorses in the company. A Cesaro would be fun. I doubt we would ever get an AJ Cesaro Iron Man match. But those are the people I would put in it. But one half of it has to be AJ Styles. If anyone can go for an hour and make it entertaining, it would be AJ Styles. His second question, do you ever see the Elimination Chamber main eventing WrestleMania? I do not. especially with the pay-per-view being around right before WrestleMania. But even then, if we didn't have the pay-per-view, we would never see an Elimination Chamber match at WrestleMania. We would have to have the chamber high above the arena the entire time. And I mean, I guess we've had Hell in a Cell matches at the pay-per-view before, and we have the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, but that's for settling scores and rivalries that have been going on for a while, even though Taker and Shane fucking had gone on for a month. But you know what I mean, though. I feel like a chamber match at all at WrestleMania seems kind of silly, because we already have the pay-per-view. And it does not seem like a WrestleMania-like match, especially in the main event. A main event of WrestleMania should be all about one-on-one feuds, in my opinion. If you want to have a three-way or maybe a four-way, kind of sort of fine with that. But usually, more often than not, it should be one-on-one. Not 6 men, 5 men battling for a championship. That just kind of seems like a mess to me. So I don't think it ever will main event WrestleMania, and I don't want to ever see it main event WrestleMania. I think it's perfect right where it is, either where it has been in recent years, right before Mania, or in the summer, or something like that. Would you bring back in their prime? Who would you bring back in their prime, to compete in the Cruiserweight division? My choices would be Rey Mysterio, Billy Kidman, and Ultimo Dragon. Those are 3 great choices. Any one of those guys would be awesome in the Cruiserweight division. I think 205 Live is kind of a dead end. But still, any one of those guys in the current Cruiserweight crop of talent would be pretty cool. Dean Malenko would also be pretty awesome. Eddie Guerrero should not be, if he was around today, not be fucking subjected to 205 Live. But let's see. Dean Malenko. Psychosis, maybe Juventud Guerrera. Super Crazy would be pretty cool. Any one of those guys. I mean, we have like a Psychosis-like guy now, a Mexican wrestler in Gran Metalik, and they're doing nothing with the guy. So maybe it's for the best that we don't bring back guys like that. I mean, I thought Tajiri would be a great addition to the Cruiserweight division, but they got rid of him pretty quickly earlier this year after I think he got hurt, but then he was cleared, and then they got rid of him. They didn't want him anymore, which kind of sort of sucked. But, Tajiri would be cool if they brought him back, but yeah, in their prime, definitely a guy like Dean Malenko, I think would be awesome in there with guys like Drew Gulak and Neville if he was still around, or even a TJP or Hideo Itami. I think that'd be fucking awesome. Deshaun K from Facebook. This will never happen, but if WWE decides to book a wrestler to break Bruno Sammartino's record for longest reigning WWE champion, who would that wrestler be? And what would be your expectations/requirements if WWE was to do that type of booking? Will it succeed? No. You can't. You can't fucking do that in 2018. You just can't. You can't have someone on top as champion for like 6 years. Maybe for a year like Punk. I was shocked they were able to get away with that. In my opinion, if you could have Punk on top for a year and the guy was great and he was able to carry feuds and matches and promos, the modern day equivalent would have to be an AJ Styles. Who would it be? Probably a Roman Reigns. I mean, if you're going to have someone carry a company as champion for 6 years, especially with the brand split, it just doesn't work. I love the brand split, but you can't have a champion for 6 years because you're just going to be feeding the same guys to this person over the course of a year until they bring in people from SmackDown. It's going to be the same thing. You can't. It wouldn't work. They shouldn't do it. It would get boring real quick. The only reason the Punk title reign worked was because he, first of all, had great feuds with the likes of John Cena and Chris Jericho and all these other guys, Daniel Bryan. He was having great matches, and he also flipped the switch. When he got stale as a babyface, they turned him heel. So half the time he was a face, the other half of the time he was a heel. So it worked. With Roman Reigns, I don't think they would do that. And I don't know. That was only for a little over a year. You can't do it for 5 or 6 years. You just can't. It wouldn't fucking work. So no, I do not think it would succeed. And I really just don't think it would succeed. So I don't think it's ever going to happen. Like you said, it's never going to happen. But if it was going to happen, who would I do it with? AJ Styles. Who would it probably happen to? Roman Reigns. Like, I have no doubt about that. Because he is their guy after all. His second question, do you think Jason Jordan will have a Shelton Benjamin-like career in the WWE? And what would his character be like if he were to turn heel? That's a great comparison. I think Jordan can go a bit further than Benjamin. Benjamin first came to Raw in 2004. He had great showings against guys like Triple H and Rob Van Dam and John Cena. And he only won the mid-card belt a couple of times and the tag titles a couple of times. So far, Jordan is a Shelton Benjamin-like guy. I'm not just saying that because they're all fucking black. I'm saying that because he has yet to win a mid-card belt. He failed when he faced The Miz a few months ago. But he has won a couple tag titles between Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. And he's had good showings against guys only to really not win the big one. Benjamin never won the big one. And he's also a great wrestler. If he were to go heel, I think it would be for the better. I think he could go a bit further as a heel than Benjamin did. The mama gimmick and that whole thing back in the day was shit and curtailed his push drastically. Really relegated him to nothing. But I think Jason Jordan is better than that. I'm not saying the guy could be a future world champion. I think of the two, Gable, of the former American Alpha members, Gable could go further because the guy's more entertaining. I know he's not 6 foot tall, but he's not 6 feet tall, but he's also a lot better on the mic than Jordan is. I think Jordan, they were heading in the direction of turning him heel, and then obviously Ambrose got hurt, so according to Dave Meltzer, they needed to fill a role or fit a need or whatever it was, so that's why they put Jordan with Rollins, and they kind of delayed that heel turn. But I think from what we've seen so far, I think he could really work as a heel. Maybe not like Rock levels of like when he went heel in late 97, but I think he could work very well as a heel if the leash is off. If he's able to, he's not really limited to work a certain style. In the ring, the guy can go. His character is really the biggest question mark. But I think if they turn him heel and he could do what he has been teasing for a while now and being a whiny-ass bitch, he can be really entertaining. So I think he would be much better off as a heel. So I'm hoping that's the direction they go in when this whole Rollins tag team thing runs its course. His next question, what do you think the WrestleMania 34 set will look like? Will it be the same as WrestleMania 30? Oh, because they're both in New Orleans? I doubt it. It can't be. They've never done the same WrestleMania set twice, at least not in the last 20 years. I can't even imagine what it's going to look like. I could not tell you that I would ever have expected to see a giant globe or a roller coaster for WrestleMania 33. And in my opinion, was the best set they ever did. And I'm not just saying that because I was there. It was one of the most beautiful sets I've ever seen. They really went all out with that shit. So I can't even imagine. I can't even really think what they're going to do for WrestleMania 34. It's like they went to Texas twice for Mania 25. They've gone to Texas a few times, but they were there for Mania 25. And they were there for WrestleMania 30. It was not the same set both times. So I feel like they will... And it won't be the same set anyway, because WrestleMania 30 had the X's, and it was WrestleMania 30, like it was a big deal. 34 probably won't be as good, but, they always go all out with the sets, so I'm sure it's going to be great. I can't even imagine what it's going to be, though. I can't even begin to fathom what it's going to look like. Mark S. from Facebook... Who do you think Roman Reigns might defend his IC title against if he's still champion come the Rumble time? Well, I was hoping Samoa Joe. He beat him clean on Raw this week, and I was hoping the feud might continue. And then I realized Miz is back starting next week, so I assume we're going to get Reigns and Miz, and that was what I read anyway. We're going to pick up where we left off with that feud with Miz and Reigns. So, yeah, I assume we're going to get Reigns and Miz at the Rumble pay-per-view, if not on the 25th anniversary show. But yeah, I think Joe's time in the title scene is done for right now, which... kind of sort of sucks, but Roman Reigns and Miz seems to be the direction they're going in for the championship heading into the Royal Rumble. Who are your top 3 favorites to win the Men's Royal Rumble this year, and is there any past star you would like to see return for it? I'm sure I've mentioned this, a bunch of times recently, because I always get this question. It does change a lot with both the favorites who I have to win and people I would like to see back. Top 3 favorites currently, Shinsuke Nakamura, Roman Reigns, probably John Cena. Don't want to see Roman or Cena win it. I think Cena out of the title picture is for the best. And that's been the rumor anyway. Roman Reigns can still go for the Universal title belt. Raw gets the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. That's what he should win. He should not win, especially if Lesnar's not going to be the Elimination Chamber. If Lesnar will not defend the championship inside the Chamber, have Reigns win the Chamber to become the number 1 contender. Don't have him win another Rumble, especially in fucking Pennsylvania. That was beyond dumb when they did it the first time in 2015. They're back in the same state for this Rumble. Why do it again? Why do the same bad finish that no one wants to see again? Unless you're turning him heel, which they're not going to do, why do it again? So anyway, I think Roman is off the table, or at least he should be. Cena's off the table, so that leaves Nakamura. But those are my top 3 favorites right now. And people I would like to see return for it, Rey Mysterio would be pretty cool. Batista would be pretty cool. And the 2 people that got booed at the last Rumble in Philadelphia back in 2014. Or 2015, I think it was, whatever. Whatever the 2014 Rumble was. It was also in Pennsylvania. But yeah, so either one of those two would be pretty cool. I think if they came back, they would get big pops as opposed to last time they were in the Rumble in 2014. But yeah, Batista, Ray. That's really about it. I mean, Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy and all those guys are already back. Goldberg would be cool for a one-off, but you know he's not going to win. Though it would be kind of cool, though. But yeah, at the top of my list right now, Scott Steiner is always going to be at the top of my list. I just know it's never going to happen, but it would be cool for a one-off. Yeah, Rey Mysterio and Batista lead the list right now for returns I would like to see in the Rumble this year. For the men's Rumble, anyway. Who could you see Lars Sullivan challenging in the next NXT TakeOver if he makes the card? Probably Killian Dane, based off what we saw in the Fatal 4-Way #1 Contenders match last week. They had a great interaction. You could have Sullivan say that Dane cost him the match because they were too busy brawling on the outside. It makes sense. Dane isn't going for a championship at TakeOver Philly anyway. I don't know what Sanity's going to be doing. But you could do Lars Sullivan and Killian Dane. I think that could be a really fun match. So I assume that's the match they're going to be doing at the pay-per-view or the event, whatever, at the TakeOver. His last question here. If you could turn any female across NXT, SmackDown, and Raw from heel to face or face to heel shortly before the Women's Royal Rumble to win it presently, who would you turn? Well, I want Asuka to win, but I wouldn't turn her heel. So if I had to turn someone and then have them win, it would be Sasha Banks. She is in more need of a heel turn than anyone else in the roster. Not even fucking close. And at least Sasha winning the Rumble, would it be the most favorable finish? I don't think people would poop on it. I'd rather have other people win before her. But you could do Banks and, someone else at WrestleMania for the championship. Maybe hopefully something we have not seen before. Maybe Bayley wins back the belt in February. Again, not something I really want to see. I think Asuka deserves to win the Rumble, and she should win the Rumble. But Banks going heel before the Rumble comes around and then winning the Rumble would be much needed because Banks is a babyface. Like we talked about last week in Wrestle Rant Radio between John and I, is just abysmal. She is so obnoxious as a babyface. It's not even funny. Ross S. from Facebook as well. What are your thoughts on Shield 2.0? I assume with Roman, Seth, and Jason. It's not really the Shield. But I love that segment on Raw this week where Jordan was like, on behalf of me and Rollins, if Joe comes near again, I'm going to beat his ass. Believe that. Like, he comes across so confident that, like, he's a lot like Bo Dallas in NXT from a couple of years ago where he thinks people love him, but in reality, people fucking hate his guts. And he comes across as so corny that it's awesome. Like, he kind of felt like a Kurt Angle from, like, 1999 or a 2000 Kurt Angle there. It was awesome. So I'm liking what they're doing with Jordan. If they are still going to turn him heel, it might be happening a little later than expected because of Ambrose's injury. But I like what we're seeing so far with Jordan mixing it up and interacting with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns recently on Raw. His second question, do you believe that sending talent who are nearer to being released to NXT will help them in the long run? Doesn't hurt. And look at Zack Ryder. Easily got another 2 or 3 years out of his career by going to NXT. The guy was doing nothing in 2015, 2014. The guy was fucking barely on the show. But going to NXT gave him new life. He got the tag team with Mojo Rawley, and they never won the tag titles, but they brought that to the main roster. He became the IC champion for a day. That probably didn't really have anything to do with the other, I don't think. But he did have new life in NXT and SmackDown because of that tag team, the Mojo, and his run in NXT. Cesaro, the guy I don't think he was on the verge of being released in 2012. But going to NXT really made people look at him in a different light, and that was probably what led him to winning the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal in 2014 because people were starting to see how popular he was through his work in NXT. And he was already doing great work on the main roster with Swagger as the Real Americans, but I think the NXT run really helped him. Tyson Kidd, another guy, probably would have been cut short in 2014 had he not gone to NXT. The guy turned heel. I think he was doing a whole lot of nothing on the main roster in 2014. Goes to NXT, reinvents himself, has a great fucking run. Had an awesome run as a heel, and with Cesaro too, later on in the main roster. So, yeah, going to NXT can definitely help save careers. Emma, I know she was later released, but she turned heel in NXT, and she kind of gave birth to a new character that we would see return to the main roster in early 2016. So, yeah, going to NXT is obviously for the better, because they know how to handle talent there, as opposed to on Raw and SmackDown more often than not. Mike Kanellis is a guy I would love to see in NXT. He's not even on the show more often. He has not been on fucking SmackDown in months. Could not tell you the last time he wrestled a match on SmackDown. So why not just move him to NXT for a little while, especially with Maria being gone. And she's pregnant, so just move him to NXT, So yeah, sending talent to NXT in the long run who are close to being released will definitely help them. No doubt. It's not going to hurt them, that's for sure. If you had creative power, how would you book Bobby Roode? Well, turn him heel. Obviously, I would turn him heel and make him a good, solid mid-card champion. I would not make the same mistake WWE made with Mahal. I think Bobby Roode would fit a lot better in the main event scene than fucking Mahal ever did. But I think a slow ascent to the main event scene for Roode in 2018 is where it's at. So I would put the U.S. belt on him first, turn him heel, have him face, an AJ Styles or all the other baby faces on the brand, or Randy Orton or Shinsuke Nakamura, and then move him into the main event scene. So I would turn him heel. That's the first thing that I would do to book Bobby Roode on SmackDown. Next few questions are from @RebornAgain on the Twitter machine, from John Rentland. Has a great show on YouTube, by the way. Cheap plug. Check out all of his shows. Does great work. Obviously, his tweets are entertaining too, but his YouTube work is outstanding. So definitely subscribe to him if you haven't already. His first question was, since the official 25th anniversary of Raw is right around the corner, the 11th, not the 22nd like WWE is promoting, what are 3 to 5 matches that you would show to a new fan from Raw and or from the Raw history or whatever? I think you left that word there by accident. And why would you pick these matches? That's a great question. For the matches that come to mind, if I want to pick one from each era, so Flair and Perfect from one of the first few Raws in '93. Because it had a great story. Loser leaves town. They had history as former partners. Flair's final match in WWE, for that run anyway. Great match. So I would show them Flair and Perfect. Rock and Mankind from the first Raw of '99. That was where Mankind became WWE champion. If only for the moment, with Mankind becoming champion. One of the greatest all-time Raw moments ever. So I would have to show them that in that match. Widely regarded as one of the greatest Raw moments ever, like I said. So you would have to show him that. John Cena and Shawn Michaels, another match that is widely regarded as one of the greatest Raw matches ever. Goes about an hour. I don't know if that would be their cup of tea, but they could see a real wrestling match. Also involving John Cena and CM Punk. The other match is from '07. This one is from 2013. One of Punk's really last great matches in WWE. From that February 25th, 2013 edition of Raw. Got a ton of time. The winner went on to WrestleMania to face The Rock for the WWE Championship. Obviously Cena won, but Punk got enough near falls in there to make people think, oh shit, he might be winning. So Cena Punk, one of the best Raw matches in the last 5 years. For a fifth match, I'll throw Michaels and Angle in there from the Ruthless Aggression era, from the Raw Homecoming show in late '05. It was an Iron Man match, I think about 30 minutes. Another great wrestling match with two of the best of all time. So again, real quick, the matches I would show to someone from Raw's history, and I'm sure there's many more I'm not thinking of, but I try to pick one from each era in Raw's history, from Flair and Perfect from early '93, January of '93, Rock and Mankind from January 1999, Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle from October of 2005, John Cena versus Shawn Michaels from April of '07, and John Cena versus CM Punk from February of 2013. His second question, are there any particular surprise entrants that you would like to see in the upcoming Women's Royal Rumble? I think I've answered this before, not here in this show, I think another podcast that I've done. Eve Torres would be pretty cool. I know she stays in good shape because she's married to a Gracie and she does the MMA stuff now, and along with many other things. So Eve would be cool. I'm not banking on it. I know she has a good relationship with the company. I think she has like a Legends deal or something, an alumni deal. So Eve would be pretty sweet. Karma, I know it's not happening because she's focusing on being a mom now. She hasn't wrestled in a while. She lost a lot of weight. Karma would still be cool. We have not seen her at all since the Rumble in 2012. She was in the Men's Rumble. So having her come back in the Women's Rumble would be pretty sweet. I expect the Bellas to be back. It's not really something I'm looking forward to, but I assume they'll be back. Victoria would also be pretty cool. I heard I thought they would be bringing her in for the brand split back in 2016 for like SmackDown or something. They brought in Mickie James instead, but Victoria would still be cool, if only for a one-off. We have not seen her in a WWE ring since WrestleMania 25, which was almost 10 years ago, but I think Victoria would be cool, and obviously Trish and Lita, those are the obvious answers, but Eve, Carmen, Victoria are some dark horses for surprise entrance in the upcoming Women's Royal Rumble. Do you think WWE's stubbornness, in regards to how they book Roman Reigns will come back to bite them at any point in the near future? I mean, one can argue it already really has. I've said this before, that with Roman Reigns, When you put all your fucking eggs in one basket, you are doing that at the expense of the rest of the roster. So what happens if Reigns gets hurt? So like when Roman Reigns got suspended a few years ago, they did the right thing in putting the belt on Ambrose, and they let him run with the championship for a while. If that didn't happen, you sure as hell know that it would have been Roman Reigns walking into SummerSlam, walking into Raw, the new era of Raw, as WWE champion. I have no doubt about that at all. So when you put all your eggs in one basket, if Roman Reigns is not there to sell a show, you have all these other guys that no one gives a shit about because it's all about Roman Reigns all the time. That's the issue. They haven't really had that yet as Reigns doesn't really get hurt. And they are doing a better job of focusing on other guys like a Rollins and an Ambrose and Braun Strowman. And I appreciate that. But at this point, something's got to change. The guy's been getting the same reactions for 3 years now. It's not going to change unless they change how they book him. You do the same thing over and over expecting a different result is the literal definition of insanity. So why they won't change their approach with him, I'm not sure. I mean, they are doing something better recently, doing something different in booking him as IC champion, having all these great matches. That certainly helps. Don't get me wrong. That absolutely helps. But in how they present his character, from a character standpoint and his character motivation, they need to do a better job of that because he comes across like a fucking dickhead more often than not. Like the match with Samoa Joe last week on Raw, when he got himself disqualified. What was the fucking point of that? What was the point of that? Why would he continue to attack Samoa Joe when it was his fault, Roman Reigns' fault, that he got DQ'd in the first place? It was completely uncalled for, and they expect us to cheer for him. Like, that's the issue. So I think one can argue it already really has come back to bite them in the ass. But I think it will continue to bite them in the ass in the future if they do not change their approach and how they book Roman Reigns. From at RJ_Marceau, my brother Mr. Marceau, his question was, which superstar who thrived in 2017 while a disappointing/down 2018? Good question. I couldn't really think of many people like, I hate to say, oh, this person did so great in 2017, but they're going to fucking flop in 2018. Like, I hate to kind of predict that. It's like kind of predicting who's the next person to get fired. Just a lot less worse, because this is not the matter of someone losing their job. Jinder Mahal, I want to say, I mean, from a WWE standpoint, from like a booking standpoint, he thrived because he was WWE champion for 6 months. He didn't have great matches. Really would not be my superstar of the year at all. Just the guy was not that good in the slightest. That being said, I do think they will continue to push him in the new year as United States champion. He might even do better work as a wrestler and on the mic than he was as WWE champion. But he probably will not get back to the main event scene in 2018. So it's going to be a little down for him. And there weren't many other people that came to mind except for maybe Naomi, who had a great 2017, two-time SmackDown Women's Champion, constantly in the mix. I feel like they'll probably, kind of move her aside like Becky Lynch they did last year to focus on the other women. So Naomi might have a more disappointing year. And Alexa Bliss is going to be my bold prediction. Now, I know she was champion for the better part of 2017, pretty much all of 2017. And she had great work in 2016 when she first came up to the main roster. But I feel like she's really already beaten everybody. She's faced Sasha Banks. She's faced Bayley. She's faced Becky Lynch. And she's been champion for the better part of 2018. So once she drops that belt, whether it's Paige, Asuka, whoever, I do think that Bliss will kind of step aside like Charlotte did in 2017. Charlotte did not have a bad 2017, but they kind of stopped focusing on her for a long time last year. After she dropped the belt in February of 2017, she was not champion again until November. She really wasn't even in the mix at all for the better part of 2017. I think the same thing is going to happen to Alexa Bliss. She won't have a bad year, but it won't be nearly as good as her 2017 was. I have no doubt about that. At Jeremy8911, his question was from the Twitter machine, am I the only one that thinks Shane is going to add himself to the WWE title match for the Royal Rumble next week? I don't think so. I didn't get that impression when we heard the announcement on SmackDown this week, but it would be interesting. Like, do you mean a tag team title match? Like where if Shane gets pinned, AJ still loses the WWE Championship, like that type of thing? Or like a 4-way? I don't think so. Otherwise, we would have gotten that announcement this past week, but there's still plenty of time between now and the Rumble, so maybe they will do it next week. I think the handicap match is fine. I was hoping for a 3-way, but a handicap match works too. I mean, a 3-way would have been a handicap match anyway, because Owens and Zayn would have teamed up on AJ the entire time. I don't think Shane would add himself to the match. I'm not sure really why he would, other than the fact that, yeah, he's feuding with Owens and Zayn, but AJ wants to, overcome the odds on his own. Maybe he wants Shane, but do they really trust each other? Like, that's the question. So, you know what? Maybe there is a chance we could see that happen come SmackDown this Tuesday. But I didn't really get that impression from what we saw this past week on the show. But you never know. At Scarlet1 from the Twitter machine, should Goldust try to lose weight in order to become a Cruiserweight champion a la 2003 Matt Hardy? You know what? Fuck it. Why not? The Cruiserweight division is as dead as it gets right now anyway. No one cares two shits. No one can give two shits about anyone in that division except for Goldust on Raw and 205 Live this week. So, you know what? Fuck it. Why not? What do you know of New Japan Pro Wrestling storylines going into Wrestle Kingdom 12? Pretty much nothing, because I've said this before. I do not watch Wrestle Kingdom. I do not watch New Japan. I don't really keep tabs on it at all, except for the big matches. Obviously, I've been following somewhat Jericho and Omega. I'm looking forward to the match. Haven't really followed their press conferences and stuff too much, except for seeing clips here and there. Beyond that, I know nothing about the build to Wrestle Kingdom. I don't think I'll check the show out in full. I just don't have the time. I'll definitely watch Omega and Jericho when I have the time on Thursday, whenever it airs. But yeah, I know pretty much nothing about any storylines going into Wrestle Kingdom 12. Their third question, how do you feel about the Women's Rumble having 30 participants? I think it should have had 20. The fucking women's roster overall, they have a very strong women's division on paper. They don't really book the women all that well. But overall, they have 19 women, not even 20, 19 women between Raw and SmackDown. Having 30 participants means you're going to have multiple NXT women and multiple surprises. How many fucking surprises do we need? Like, that, really? Like, do we need 5 returns? Like, not really. Like, 1 or 2 here or there is fine. Maybe an Ember Moon shows up or a Peyton Royce. Like, all that is fine and dandy. We don't need 30 participants in a fucking Women's Royal Rumble. You really don't. It's not the worst thing. I mean, they'll make it work, but, like, I laugh, because I know they want to make it like the men's with all the women, declaring our entry in the Royal Rumble. Everyone's going to be in it anyway. Everyone's going to be in the fucking Women's Royal Rumble, because you have to be. There has to be every woman on the current roster in the Rumble in order to fill out the full 30 spots. And people are arguing, it might take away from the men's version. If you have a kick off the show, it's not that big of a deal. I don't think it's going to go as long as the men's version, but that takes up most of the show right there. I don't think we need 2 long rumbles. A 20 women rumble would have been fine. 30 participants, not sold on it entirely, but we'll see. What's good for the men is good for the women. Okay, I get that. I understand it. It's not a sexist thing. I just don't think it's necessary. Honestly, like, I know it's like, why can't the women have the same amount as the men? It's because we only have fucking 19 women on the roster, people. That's why. We need to have the same amount of women's matches as we do men's matches in the new year. It's like, I saw someone tweet that. It's like, at least in WWE, never, ever going to happen. It won't. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's like, when you have fucking 20 women on the roster, and you have like 80 men between the 2 rosters, between Raw and SmackDown, there's a huge difference there. That's why the women get less time than the men. It's because there's a lot less women than there is men. Yeah, if they brought on more women or hired more women, they can fix that issue, but as it currently stands, they don't even have anywhere close to 30 women. They have 2/3 of that. They got to fill that up with surprises, which is fine. But I just don't think we need that many call-ups or that many surprise entrants. I could do without a fucking Stephanie McMahon showing up in the Women's Royal Rumble. Or someone like that, God forbid. So we'll see, but not sold on it as of yet. Push 1, repackage 2, release 3. Seth Rollins, Jason Jordan, Chad Gable, Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly. So all the tag team champions currently in WWE. That is a great question. Push Rollins. I mean, he's the biggest star out of any of them, so you got to push Seth Rollins. Repackage Chad Gable easily, because I think Chad Gable could be a big star on his own. This is tough. I would repackage O'Reilly. Because of Fish and O'Reilly, I think O'Reilly can be the bigger star. I don't really care too much about O'Reilly on his own as much as I do in the tag team. But if I had to choose, O'Reilly is a bigger star than Fish. So I would keep Fish, repackage him as a single star. Release Benjamin is a no-brainer. I like Benjamin a lot, but it's like the guy's in the twilight of his career. You would get rid of him. Jason Jordan has a lot to offer, not nearly as much, as, in my opinion, as an O'Reilly or a Gable, so I'd get rid of Jordan. And Bobby Fish because of the aforementioned reasons. Their next question: name a year that you would call a mixed bag, either in wrestling or your personal life in general. Good question. 2014 was kind of a mixed bag for WWE. Like, I would say 09, 2010 were fucking the drizzling shits when you go back. 2011 was also a mixed bag too. Because 2011 you had the Punk stuff, but when it wasn't really, really good and you didn't have the hot product, it was really, really bad too. Like, the first few months of 2011 were fucking terrible for the most part. Or like the springtime before Punk cut the pipe bomb promo. So 2011 is absolutely a mixed bag if I've ever seen one. I would say 2011 was a mixed bag personally too. Some great highlights, but a lot of low points too. 2016 was probably the definition of a mixed bag. A lot of great moments in 2016 for me personally. A lot of terrible moments too. It was either the highest of the highs, the lowest of the lows. 2017 was just a lot of highs and not a lot of lows, really whatsoever. Which is why I thought 2017 was a great year overall for me personally. 2016, though, was the definition of a mixed bag for me, as well as 2011. In wrestling, again, 2011's a mixed bag. 2014, a lot of dead points, but the summer was hot, I felt like. Coming out of WrestleMania, kind of dead, but the road to WrestleMania got better and better. I mean, Punk left, but you also had the Shield breaking up and all this other stuff. New stars, NXT was great. So 2014 mixed bag. 2015 I thought was pretty good. 2016 was pretty good for WWE. Those are years I would consider mixed bags for both me personally and wrestling, specifically WWE. At Brad Berdar, we'll finish up with his questions here from the Twitter machine. 3 questions. First one being, it's well known by now that the majority of fans despise Jason Jordan and do not give a crap about 90% of the cruiserweights. Do you think there's any blame to be placed on Jordan and the cruiserweights for this, or is it solely down to bad booking? It's more so creative than anything else, because the cruiserweights can go. If they're not given a chance to shine, no one's going to give a shit. Like, Akira Tozawa is really, really good. But unless we're given a reason to care, no one's going to fucking care. So it's largely the booking. Jordan, I think, was headed in the right direction when they were teasing the heel turn. They still kind of are. So it's not really his fault either. They were just really... It was kind of dead on arrival. The whole Jason Jordan, Kurt Angle, illegitimate son storyline. They really shot themselves in the foot with that fucking thing. But it might turn out to be a positive. They turn the guy heel and he turns out to be a whiny-ass bitch. It could work out to be a good thing. So it's not really their fault. It's more so the booking. Really, largely the booking. Especially with the cruiserweights. Like, they're good, but they could also be really, really good. But they're not given the time or the creative freedom to really do what they're capable of. So it kind of falls on WWE in my opinion. His second question, best theme song for the Royal Rumble pay-per-views. Ooh, that's a great question. If you like my answer to this question, if you like music and pay-per-view themes, real cheap plug, you're going to love the podcast that Jamie Lee Mack and I did for Wrestle Rant Radio a few weeks back, right before Christmas, the holiday edition of Wrestle Rant Radio. We talked all about pay-per-view themes, not only in 2017 in WWE, but like of all time. So definitely check that podcast out if you like that type of thing. Best theme song for pay-per-views, the Rumble pay-per-views. I did a list of this a few years ago for like a random video blog in like 2015 or 2016. So check that out for the full list. Off the top of my head though, I gotta go with Hero from Skillet by Skillet as my favorite Rumble theme. Because that was one of my favorite Rumbles anyway, because it was the first Rumble pay-per-view. The first pay-per-view I ever ordered was Rumble. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was. Rumble 2010. So it has a lot of memories for that alone, but it's also a great song. Hero by Skillet, awesome. The Finger 11 song, I keep on forgetting what it's called. The one for 2011 was really, really good. Dark Horses was a Dark Horse theme song for 2012. 2013, the Champion one, whatever it was, not a huge fan. 2014, the Wiz Khalifa song. I'm not even a huge Wiz Khalifa guy, but that song grew on me. We Own It, or whatever it was. The 2015 song, Fight Tonight, We're Gonna Fight Tonight, whatever it's called, Gonna Fight Tonight. Good song, not great, but good. 2016 didn't even have a theme. In 2017, could barely remember. Forgot what it was called, but it just was not one of my favorites. And then before that, 09 had Let It Rock by Kid Rock. Not Kid Rock. The same guy who did the WrestleMania 2016. Kevin Rudolph. That was a great song too. Stand up for rock and roll, stand up. Their Rumble 08 theme, also really, really good. And that's all I can really remember. Falling Apart by Trust Company for the Rumble in 03. Great song for the video package between Triple H and Scott Steiner, even though the match sucked. I would put that up there as one of the best Rumble themes, but in my opinion, my favorite Rumble theme, Hero by Skillet from 2010. And final question for the first episode of Hashtag in the new year of 2018, also from @BradBradar on Twitter. Will Apollo Crews ever find his footing in WWE, or will he be talked about in the years to come once he's left the company as a guy who had all the potential in the world but could never live up to it? Honestly, it might be the latter. I mean, it's still early. He's only been here for a few years, on the main roster for just about 2 years, but they have shown no desire to push the guy. And the further along he goes as a job guy, the harder it's going to be for people to care about him. So I feel like he won't find his footing. I really don't. I think he will be one of those guys where he leaves the company in the next few years, and then we're going to say, like, he could have been a lot more. I hate to say it, but I really feel like if they were going to push him by now, they would have. And they already have a lot of other athletic guys. Like, Apollo Crews is like, oh, he can do all these things. Well, like, fucking 90% of the roster can do all those things that Apollo Crews can. And he has no character. So I do think he will leave the company with us wondering what could have been if they actually pushed him properly. And that does it, guys, for the premiere episode of Hashtag AskGSM in 2018. We made it through the full hour, or whatever it was. Let me see what the timestamp here is on this. Just about a little over an hour and 6 minutes, without the computer shutting off again. So thank you, computer, for not fucking up on me. Sorry to say that. I don't want it to turn off on me now. But anyway, guys, if you want to send in a question for next week's edition, tweet me on the Twitter machine @WrestleRant with a hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. Last but certainly not least, drop your question in the comment section down below. I'll include it in next week's edition. So anyway, guys, have an awesome, healthy, happy 2018. We'll be back next Wednesday, with another all-new episode of Hashtag AskGSM. If you haven't already, check out the last 2 episodes, the final 2 episodes of 2017. Special guest appearances by Jason on that first one, and a real brief appearance by my girlfriend Haley on the second one. Anyway, guys, have an awesome rest of your week. Enjoy Wrestle Kingdom 12 if you're watching live tomorrow night. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.